another edition of Tortora and Alford, hanging out with you inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal on 3501 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. You also find them on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in their drive-through location, North Syracuse. And Lily is always in the studio, growl right before it's like she wants to be noted. You know what I mean?
Maybe it's the theme music or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She likes to get noticed. That's the show-off thing. When she runs and she growls, she wants to get noticed. So we're here and inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. You see our topic of the day, Florida State at Syracuse, the final home game for the Syracuse Orange in the 2022 season. They're already bowl eligible. They have an opportunity to get back on the right side of things at home after losing to Notre Dame. So they will host the visiting Florida State Seminoles, a team that they will now have as a permanent from 2023 through 2026 at least. They will continue to play them every season like they have in the Atlantic Division. They will now continue to play them every year in the new 3-5-5 model of the ACC starting next season, where you have three permanent opponents. Florida State, which makes no sense, Boston College, and Pittsburgh, which does make sense. So that's all going to happen, and you're with us here on many different channels. We appreciate you being here. And, of course, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is live for you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life on Facebook.com, YouTube.com, and MixLR, all.com/WakeUpCallDT. So however you're tuning into the show, definitely appreciate being with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So thank you for being here with us. And we're going to be talking Florida State at Syracuse. We'll also be talking an overall view of the ACC. And we will also get into college football as a whole. Take a look at those college football playoff rankings. Some changes that we were made. What Isaac and I agree with, what we disagree with, and a bunch of stuff coming up. So we appreciate you being here. Mr. Alford, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be back in the studios with you. You know, for the last home game, I brought my bucket hat on.
Yeah.
I need to get some good luck with it. You know, we're on a little slide here, but hopefully it'll bring some good luck for the team, and we can pull out that last needed victory at home.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I always think about, and you know, when it comes down to the show, I'm always very purposeful with what I wear. So I got the ACC hat on today, but I chose the team that can't lose, and that is the Wakanda Panthers. So, you know, if your people look at this was a nice kind of play on something here. This shirt I got a long time ago. It's the old Charlotte Bobcats logo from the NBA.
Gotcha. Okay.
And people would look at it, and they would think it's a team, or they would think it's the Bobcats, and then they take a look at it a little closer, like, oh, that's a little play on that. That's the Wakanda Panthers. I said, yeah. So I chose the Undefeateds is what I chose in this one. So shout out to Wakanda, and to a great movie that you and I got to see, and we might have to do a little thing about that separately for Superpower Pop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Definitely. Obviously, we don't want to spoil it for too many people, but yeah, definitely.
No, don't want to tell people what's going on here. So definitely appreciate it, and thank you all for being here inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and Alford. We got a lot of stuff to get into. Find us on social media at Wake Up Call DT on Facebook, at Call DT on Twitter, and at Wake Up Call _DT on Instagram. So Syracuse starts off 6-0. 5 of those 6 games were in the Dome. The only game that wasn't was UConn. You and I got to be on site for all those games in the Dome. Watch Syracuse become bowl eligible. First time I ever realized that the graphic was a real graphic, because I've never seen Syracuse be able to say that they're bowl bound like that early.
Yeah.
And so up on the new video boards, we saw the bowl bound, got a nice picture of that. Everybody stormed the field in the NC State game, and a lot of excitement. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's been supporting us on our social media. I know social media can be used in a negative way and for bad reasons, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that use it to spread hate and negativity, and there's a lot of people out there that use it to try to accentuate or discredit people's work. Well, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I aired the video of the North Carolina State game when the Syracuse fans rushed the field, and on Facebook alone, over 1 million of you watched my video. So thank you for that. Tennessee fans, Georgia, there was fans all over the world watching it. So thank you for that. You know I don't care about the numbers.
A little clap for that, you know.
If we touched what one life, that's enough for me. But it was something because when I interviewed Dabo Sweeney a few ACC kickoffs ago, I asked him about his faith. And I had waited 2 years for it. It was the last question of the entire ACC kickoff. It was the final question before they shut the cameras off for good that time around. Last question to Clemson, to Dabo, and they were the last team out there. I asked him about his faith. I'll never forget it, and I got a copy of it. I think it might be on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, but I know it's on facebook.com /wakeupcalldt. And I asked him about his faith, and one TV station alone, it went to over 1 million people in like a day and a half, 2 days. And then when I asked Eric Dungy the question where he got emotional after the Camping World Bowl, the ESPN, it was like 700,000 people. And I remember writing directly to ESPN saying, that's a fantastic answer. I wonder what the question was. And ESPN, I'm going to give them credit on ESPN.com, of 0% of the media that ever gives credit where credit's due, ESPN actually the next morning didn't give my name credit, but they changed the video that it wasn't just Eric's answer, and you could hear my voice. So I do want to give credit where credit's due. In 19 years of being a broadcaster, almost none of you in the media respect each other, and everybody cuts each other down. So to the very few people that do it the right way, I appreciate that. And y'all know I give credit where credit is due as well. So I just want to thank it, because seeing one of my questions get to 1 million views on someone's channel, that was cool, because that was my thing. But to witness one of our videos hit 1 million people, and we're not the news channel that's been around for 100 years. I just want to thank you all for doing that, connecting with us, and just knowing that one life we touch means a lot to me. And my grandmother would tell me a bunch of things. She would say, keep your nose clean, be a good boy, and to the people that don't like you and don't respect you, piss on them. And if that doesn't work, tell them to go take a shit for themselves. So I'm gonna do what Grandma told me, and I'm gonna keep being the good boy and keep trucking forward, because I know God takes care of His own. So
There you go.
I think I
excuse me.
No, you're good. I think I said what needed to be said.
Definitely.
Anything you'd like to add?
Nah, I think you hit it right there on the nail on the head. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat or something. But excuse me. But those moments on film, like you said, that NC State game was a good moment in time for somebody to catch and get on camera. Excuse me.
Yeah, go on.
But just to show that everybody saw that and could share that moment with the team for winning that 6th game, it definitely meant a lot. And I know we always joke about it, saying, "Hey, the comments that we get, on that clip."
The comments were insane.
But no, it definitely means something. When you get had that chance to be 6-0.
Why you rushing the field? And I was like, bro, Clemson rushed the field in Death Valley when they beat Syracuse.
Exactly.
And Clemson is a perennial national power.
Let everybody have their moments, you know, and definitely that's what it was. So, it is a good feeling to see that everybody, no matter what region of the states you were in, they can have that opportunity to see that moment, because, not everybody was in the building at that time.
Yeah.
And, you get snippets of it during the game or at the end, but again, like you said, that was a nationally televised game, and then everybody had a chance to enjoy the moment. So yeah,
and I never thought taking a video that it would do anything. I just took it to celebrate my city, the real fans in the city, and I genuinely loved the bowl bound logo. I thought it was really cool, and I don't know if you and I will ever see that again, where they go 6-0 and they become bowl bound in the first half of the season.
Right.
The last time it happened was in '87 when we had the undefeated team with Rob Drummond in the crew. So you think about that, and it's pretty insane to think that was almost 40 years ago the last time they started 6-0. So to see something like that happen in front of us, you got to take those moments and enjoy those moments. So I kind of just put that up as a time capsule that I wanted to share with everybody. And, I want to thank y'all. We hit 1 million, and it keeps rocking and rolling, and it's been good. And for whatever reason, people are going back to one of my videos with Garrett Schrader when he was wearing that winter hat. And like this week they've been watching that, and I was like, well, people get nostalgia. Like, remember when we had Garrett Schrader? I feel like people are crying in their oatmeal right now watching the video, but for whatever reason, people have been going back to that Schrader video, and that was like the first like 3 or 4 weeks that they're going back to that one. So I was like, I don't know, people getting a little teary-eyed about Garrett Schrader right now.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they did win it the first 6 games. I think we probably need to do that until we can build up the depth on this team, because injuries do affect this team more than often. Yeah. And it's just a blessing that they did get it done in the first 6 weeks, because we've seen it last year. You get to 5 wins and you got 3 games left, and when you're on this back end of the season, it's kind of for some reason these teams with Dinos, they always, not gonna say always struggle, but it's always a fight, and the schedule didn't help them out last year on the last 3 games either.
Yeah.
They had a lot of tough teams, kind of the stretch they're going through now with teams with big offensive lines and that's just running the ball down your throats right now. They found that the last 3 games of the season when they were trying to fight for that 6th win. Now this right now, it makes it a little better that you got the 6 wins on your belt, you got the bowl eligibility on your belt. To me, it's time to get a little creative with the offense. And like you said, we're kind of missing Schrader out there being the quarterback, because again, this offense was made for him. Really, everything tailored on him. Yeah. Being able to run with his legs and do what he do with his arm in the air, but now it's time to get creative. To me, I was thinking about this earlier too. I was like, if I was a OC right now, it's kind of like you're getting ready for the bowl, and in the bowl you're playing some opponent that you rarely see, and it's time to just put it all out there on don't leave nothing to caution. And that's the same thing they got now for these last 3 games of the regular season. I mean, the next half of the bowl season is already secured, so it's now. If Garrett can't run or be in there, let's go ahead and just open it up a little bit more, and don't forget some of the things that you were doing that were getting the job done. Bring that things, but like the read option, we talked about that. So I definitely would like to see the offense help out the defense a little bit, because the defense has been doing their job.
Yeah, I think Syracuse's game against Pittsburgh, and it was funny because I said multiple times on the show, including on Tortora and Alford, I said, if they play into a 17-6 game, that's exactly the game that Narduzzi would love. Mm-hmm. And then I called you in the third quarter when it was 17-6, like, really? And I was like, it's right there. And then winning 19-9, Pittsburgh did. And, you look back at that game and you talk about the offense needing to help the defense out a little bit. The offense had 8 3-and-outs. So sometimes you don't have 8 possessions in a game. Mm-hmm. And so when you have 8 possessions in a game, breaks down to 2 a quarter, so to speak. But when you look back at it and you say to yourself, like, that's a good amount, right? 2 a quarter, that's good, depending on who's running the ball, what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you look at it and say, out of all the possessions they had, 8 of those possessions were 3-and-outs. In some cases, against like a Wake Forest who has 7 or 8 minute drives against Syracuse in the past, against a team like Notre Dame, against a team like Clemson, against a team like Pittsburgh, they could run that ball. You sometimes don't get 8. You had 8 3-and-outs, which is awful of a statistic. And then you look back at it and you say, but in the fourth quarter, Syracuse's defense forced 3 3-and-outs in a row to Pittsburgh, and Syracuse had 3 points of those 3. So you got 8 3-and-outs on your offense. You're not doing anything throughout the majority of throughout the entire game, because that spans the game. But then here you are. It's not that you're getting those 3-and-outs. Your defense is giving you the ball. You're giving it right back. So we can't even sit here and say, all right, well, you know what? The defense is just at fault. You hold a team to under 20 points in today's American football, you got a shot of winning against anybody.
Right.
And you're put in a place where it's 17-6, ends 19-9. With all due respect, if your defense gives you 3 3-and-outs in a row in the fourth quarter when you're within 1 possession, you need to come away with a touchdown. And the teams that get the respect in this country, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Georgias, the teams that never say die toward the end of the game, that always have a way to do it. And keep in mind, I just named a bunch of SEC teams because they do it the best. But it's real. Is Clemson ever really out of a game outside of the Notre Dame game? right? There's Florida State of old under Jimbo Fisher for the most part. They could come back, right? So I think, when you test the mettle of a team, if your team is setting you up and they say, well, Dan, how do you lose to Clemson when you force 4 turnovers? I said penalties, and you don't score off the turnovers.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you get a possession and you take the ball away from them and you give it back in 47 seconds. It's like it didn't happen.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the person that controls the clock, controls the running game, and putting points on the board. That's the whole point of it. If you're not scoring, you just again giving the ball right back to the offense, and they're not changing field position too, because a lot of times we get the ball and they flip the field on you. And if you can't gain a first down, now you're just going to punt the ball right back to them. They get it about midfield. Hopefully you don't shank it, and they get it on their side of the field. Yeah. So, if you're not going to keep pressure on the other team, and that's what this strategy of you seeing these offensive coordinators watching the tape, you can run the ball on Syracuse. But like you said, if the defense is getting 3 and outs, occasionally or whatever with the teams, you have to put pressure by scoring on them. That gets them out of that mode of, hey, we're just going to constantly run the ball. Everybody, a good effective team going to run the ball. That's how well you tell, your offense. Can we do what we want to do when we want to do it? Dictate the pace. If they can't stop it, then, the more the better for your offense. And you don't have to always pass it. But you still got to be able to score when the defense gives you those opportunities to put points on the board. And that's just one thing right now we see with this Syracuse offense right now. They're not putting points on the board. We was averaging, like 30 points a game?
Yeah, over 30 points. I think it was over 30, and allowing the second fewest. NC State's defense was allowing under 18. Syracuse was allowing under 19. So it was something like 17.7, 18.7.
Right.
So you got 14 teams in the ACC, and your defense is in the top 2 in points allowed per game on average. And then here's your offense that was averaging over 30 points a game. And in these last few games, you look at it, you struggle against Clemson. I mean, you go back and you score 9 points against Pittsburgh most recently. And then against Notre Dame, you get 24. You get 21 against Clemson. So, the most egregious, party foul is the game against Pittsburgh, where we know Narduzzi has that defense. But, I mean, you look at it, the first few games, 31 on a Louisville team that's only gotten better. 48 on UConn, who's 1 game out of a bowl game. 32 against Purdue, who's 1 game out of a bowl game. You got 22 against Virginia. 59-0 against Wagner, which you're supposed to do. 24 against NC State. So you go above their average this season, and you're one of the teams that actually got NC State to give up more than 20 points. So Syracuse's offense looking good, and then what's the difference? Well, Garrett Schrader maybe wasn't 100% against Clemson. Definitely wasn't 100% against Notre Dame, and didn't play against Pittsburgh. So that's the difference there, is you don't have him. And if you have him, this is what people don't get. If you have him on the field, but he's not 100%, you don't have him.
Yeah, exactly. If he's not effective without his legs, then, like we talked about it, he's a guy that has proved that he can get away from a defensive lineman in a scramble, or the read option. It was the main staple of the offense. Most teams going to automatically, on a straight handoff, they're going to automatically key on Sean. Sean is the guy, number 1 option. Yeah. Stop him first, and then that's where Garrett got most of his yards, with his legs and stuff like that. And then once you get a team in that puzzle of trying to figure out who has the ball, then he was able to use his arm and open it up down the field. But yeah, exactly. I mean, first 6 games, offense was clicking, doing what they had to do. And then, like you said, somewhere along that second half of that Clemson game, Garrett must have took some kind of injury that, we didn't really hear about until halfway through the Notre Dame game. That, it's just not the same offense. So, but defensively, they still been holding their own. And then even some of these different scores, defensively, special teams who've given up stuff to kind of put the defense in a bad situation.
And the offense was giving up stuff.
Right.
You look at that Notre Dame game, first play out the gate, Garrett Schrader threw an interception, pick 6.
Yep, and then he had a block punt that kind of put the ball inside the 5-yard line. So that's 14 points right there. And that what 41-24. So
So you take away that 14 points of the 41, and now all of a sudden,
it was, what, 24, 27 or something like that.
Yeah. So you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, well, that's not that much. All right, well, you take that 14 away, and then it's 27-24. It's a field goal game.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden, you played Notre Dame better than Clemson did.
Right. And which, in theory, you did. I mean, I was kind of a little surprised at the way maybe Notre Dame understand that, trying to come into the season, maybe they were trying something offensively to do, and then once they realized playing against Syracuse, this is our bread and butter to get behind that three-headed attack of running backs that they have with that heavy offensive line. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I was kind of a little surprised, taken back a little bit. I thought Clemson defense was going to be a little bit more stout, but again, you can see it. I mean, Clemson offense is just struggling too. I know, and then they brought in their backup thinking he was going to maybe change the rhythm a little bit, and he throws an interception. So it's just because it worked against Syracuse. I mean, honestly, the guy really didn't do anything special, but not turn the ball over what DJ was doing against Syracuse.
Yeah.
But and then they just lean on the run game, and then he took that penalty on the sideline. That was his probably best play of the game. The penalty that the ref gave him, on a questionable call. So.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, when we look back at this, and I mean, they said it live in the Notre Dame Clemson game. They said this quarterback Slovis isn't doing anything.
No,
he's not doing anything special. Right, he's a backup quarterback. They lost their quarterback a few weeks into the season, and Slovis knows. I mean, you just hike it, hand it, hike it, hand it, hike it. You got three guys, and the thing is, all those guys getting rest, rotating, tap out, come in. Estime goes, runs it, then he calls himself out. Logan Diggs comes in, he run for a couple. Estime back in the next play. Then so it's in the situation that they're in. They always have fresh legs.
Right.
And, I look at this and it frustrates me. And I understand, you look at different people, and it's recruiting, it's talent, it's what do these guys do, how well they know the game, and everybody's different. But I can't sit here and believe Sean Tucker's just not good against good teams because he's gotten yardage against good teams in the past. So my frustration comes with if you're at your backup quarterback and you're being one-dimensional, just handing the ball off. I'm not saying you got the guys on the offensive line like Notre Dame does, and I'm not saying you got three backs, but how can you not find a way to get creative enough to get Sean something? And I know I sound like a broken record, but if your offensive line isn't blocking, if that line is collapsing way too quickly, if you got 1.7 seconds, 2.4 seconds, something like that to throw the ball, if you're in that type of situation in a line that is giving you a small pocket and almost immediately getting blown up, then why are you not pitching the ball to the outside? Why are you not immediately running outside? Set up in the shotgun, run the RPO, fade to the left, fade to the right, dump that ball off. Or if you're going to stay right under center, hike that ball, and in 1.7 seconds, you can pitch it. It's a lot easier to pitch it in 1.7 seconds than it is to look down the field. So I guess in my world, I've asked over and over and over again, if your offensive line is struggling and you're playing your backup quarterback, why are they not getting Sean to the outside, getting him away from the center of the line, putting him to the outside in open space where he's proven he can beat a guy face up? So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is this like a crazy scientific experiment, or is it just like an easy, like, why are they not pitching the ball? To me, it looks like it's right there.
Yeah, but you kind of said it too. It's like when your offensive line really ain't, or not even just offensive lines, if your tight ends can't hold a block either. Because a lot of that pitch stuff, what you're talking about, you got to bring. If they're gonna do the pitch play like you're saying, I'd rather you bring the wide receivers in more, where they stack them on the ends. Because that's the more space you give them. It's easy to kind of, because there's a lot of fast linebackers out there that can track a guy side to side when you're just going side to side. But Sean has the speed to get around if you give him enough of a block.
If he gets that ball, and he's got a space or two between him and the defender, that he can make you miss.
Yeah.
My problem is by the time they get him the ball, he's already in that collapse line.
Right.
So my issue is you haven't gotten Sean the ball a lot. So in these three losses, the one consistency is you're not giving him the ball. So if you're not giving him the ball and you're not running the ball and you don't think that you can get it done, you got to get more creative. Your best asset is Sean Tucker, and you're using him the least.
Right.
So to me, it kind of looks like, oh, well, you know what? When we're playing better teams, Sean, we can't run the ball with Sean because he's not that good. And and I don't think that's what I don't think that's what Robert and I is trying to say, but it's almost like we're going to abandon the run in a situation where we're playing a better team that's got bigger guys. And my thing is, if Sean is your workhorse and he's your bell cow and that's your guy that you need to trust in, you need to get creative to get him the ball. Because and again, I understand Notre Dame's offensive line totally different than Syracuse's. But if Slovis is back there and 99.9% of the time he's not going to throw the ball, I mean, good teams are going to figure that out. And even Clemson, with all their big body guys and everything that they have, they still couldn't stop it,
right.
Which gives a lot of respect to the offensive line. But the point I'm trying to make is, even if Syracuse's offensive line is night and day to Notre Dame's offensive line, you can't sit here and tell me as an offensive coordinator in FBS Division 1A football that you can't figure out a way to get Sean the ball in space, knowing that if you give him a step on somebody, he's going to do something. Because if your plan is to just keep running the ball up the gut and you're only going to run them 9 times a game, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to lose at least the next 2 games, if not 3.
Well, the only play that I really see that been really effective is that counter play he runs where they give him the read option. He goes middle, and then the quarterback peels around and gives him a slight block or whoever is on the outside, and we've seen him get around the edge on those plays. I think they did that once with him in the Pittsburgh game, but they didn't go back to it, So either, like you said, if they're going to try to attempt to make it look like they got to go up the middle, run counters. If you're going to look one way, make them go fake one way, then bring them back out, just kind of to get – because the defense is really, again, they're keying on him. They're really – whatever his first move is, you can just see the whole linebacker shift to go that direction. So if you can run counters or something like that, that could probably be an option. But, yeah, like you said, this offensive line just ain't really right now at the moment is built to run straight up the middle. That's not their strength right now. But
they're getting pushed around. That's the frustration.
Yeah.
Or I'm even looking at it in the sense of like, okay, if it's not working, you got to try something new. It hasn't worked in 3 weeks. So run the split back, bring LaQuint Allen in, who's not getting any time. I mean, he's played in a few games. I don't know if he's in the 4 or less. He may be, so he could maybe redshirt this year. Because if you play 4 games or less, you could still count it as a redshirt.
Right.
But I'm looking at this right now saying, why not put a split back situation in and do something? I mean, my frustration is we all know when Chris Elmore, when Rhino went out, nobody blocks like him. Nobody on this team blocks like him. And Maximilian Mang has not filled that gap, right? And we haven't seen, Mahar come in and do that. So at this point, I understand you might have less linemen and, you're dealing with injuries and whatnot. But I'm thinking on this big roster, you got to have a backup O-lineman or a backup D lineman or D tackle or somebody that you can put in as tight end and just let this person be in an extra part of it. I mean, Dino talked about when you're going up against Notre Dame, you're going up against 8 because they got their 5 linemen and they got 3 tight ends and this, that, whatever. So in my head right now, if you don't have Elmore and Maximilian Mang is not blocking well for this and you're not putting Mahar out there for whatever reason, then at this point, why don't you take somebody that's not on the field right now, find a way to get them on the field and repurpose someone in that situation? What do you have to lose? If anything, it's another body out there. I mean, how about this? You bring a guy in last year who's supposed to be your bell cow running back before Sean Tucker took off. And, you bring somebody in, and I think people might have forgotten this name, but on Syracuse's roster, a very quiet thing happened on Syracuse's roster in the offseason. And that was the fact that we saw one of their running backs gain a bunch of weight, get to over 300 pounds, and last year when he was injured, came into this season and transitioned himself into a defensive lineman, and that's Josh Huff.
Right.
And so Josh Huff, he's not getting on the field.
Right.
So he knows how to run. He knows what it's like to be on the offensive side. So why not take his big body and find a way to put him in? Because, Elmore is one of those guys that was there to create space, and he's extremely talented. But, I mean, at this point, if I'm a coach, I want to stop the bleeding. I want to stop losing. So I would look at it and say, we got offensive and defensive linemen that weren't meant to play this season. Why don't we take a guy who knows the offensive game, knows how to run the ball, understands blocking techniques, has ran behind a bunch of guys, and put Josh Huff out there?
Right. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, that would be a good idea, but I think he might. I don't know with his injury. I don't know if he's ready. I think I only seen him dress once in the season, but I think the last home game, I was looking for him again, but he was again back in jersey and shorts again. So I don't know. Maybe he had a relapse in practice. I don't know. But I know number 4 tried to transition, but every time that young guy's in the game, I kind of feel bad for him because the refs are calling a penalty on him. Procedure, you just can't. The Pitt guys, they play that little block. I don't think right now at this point we got tight ends that are blocking tight ends. They're more receiving tight ends, but they try to do what they can. But yeah, Josh would have probably been a perfect good. I mean, yeah, you move him the defensive lineman, but maybe next year, after Rhino leaves, he can kind of play that Rhino position. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is there's certain guys that you're not seeing out there, right? And there's guys that were brought onto the team last year when they brought in a ton of offensive linemen: Austin Cowhey, Tyler Magnuson, Kalen Ellis, who we have seen, Enrique Cruz Jr., who we saw a little bit of. There was guys that and Wes Ho was a part of that group as well. People that you bring in, but at this point, you got to repurpose and put somebody in there. You can't just say, well, we had an injury to Chris Elmore and that's just how it is and nobody's going to be able to block for this guy. You got to find a way to change things up. I mean, teams, everybody goes through injuries. Everybody has to adjust, right? Notre Dame lost a quarterback. Texas A&M lost a quarterback. It's not like injuries only happen to certain teams.
Right.
They affect everybody. I mean, for goodness, we wouldn't see. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts, here he is on Alabama. He goes down. Tua comes and takes his place. And then Jalen Hurts transfers and goes to Oklahoma. And it's like, but if he doesn't get hurt and he doesn't go down, then we don't ever have to. We don't even know what Tua can do at that time. So I think the reality of it all is everybody goes through injuries. And what I get frustrated about with Syracuse is it feels like injuries every year are accentuated because it's like, well, what are we supposed to do? We have injuries. But everybody has injuries. You play a barbaric sport. And I understand the injury bug happens, but at some point I come down to this and say, how much of it is strength and conditioning? How much to the point where they didn't even have a third-string defensive back to come in and fill in a corner or safety role.
Right.
So you say to yourself, you cannot. And I was thinking this today when I was driving around, and I don't know if you thought this before. There's only so many times you could say bad luck. If you look over Doug Marrone, Scott Schaefer, and Dino Babers' career at Syracuse, 3 different coaches, 3 different coaching staffs, yet every single year, or almost every year, every other year, we're talking about this plethora of injuries. So, I mean, can you really say over the last decade and all these coaching changes that everybody had bad luck?
Yeah, no, not really. But I think in that kind of situation, what you're explaining, though, that's kind of proved the talent depth you have on a Syracuse roster, though. I mean, Alabama, the number 1 goes down. That number 2 is probably a number 1 that could have been playing somewhere else. He's just waiting his time to come up and step up. Syracuse roster, if you can't run the same offense, then like you say, try something different. Like you said, bring in 2 running backs. But okay, then let's change up what we're doing. We don't have to run that same style. It was funny, like you said, that we're doing Marrone year throughout the whole season of camp that year. Nathaniel Hackett was like, what kind of offense we're going to have? What kind of offense? And it was just like the last week of camp, they started doing that no huddle running offense, and that became the offense for that year for that team. So sometimes you might just have to change something up when you expect to do one thing.
And it was working so well.
Right.
When they left, I was like, out of all the offenses we had seen up to that point in recent history, the Nate Hackett no-huddle offense with Ryan Nassib was working better than anything else. Right. And then I was hoping, and Lester tried a bunch of different things. Like George McDonald had his offense, but it was like Lester. It was almost like there was a kind of testing of 3 different ones, and that the no huddle could still be a part of it. But it was like Syracuse finally got it, and then the coaches changed.
Right.
But that no huddle to me was the best offense that they had run in a long time, because it was like, hey, we're not going to necessarily be fast and learn these plays successfully and just get to, we just keep going, run as many plays as we can. If we can do this, then we can beat them.
Right.
And that was a way for them to get around it. So really what you and I are asking Coach and I to do is to get creative.
Right, exactly. And then you don't have to announce it. That's what the big thing about
Don't tell
that.
anybody. Well, you don't have to worry about that because Dino doesn't let anybody talk to the media.
That too, but that was the big thing about that comparison. You come into that season and like in camp they run a 2-minute offense and we're really good at it. They don't go out and announce, hey, Syracuse is a new fast.
No.
We're gonna run tempo when you play us.
No, their no huddles still felt like it was like old school ground and pound, like it
because it was like more inside zone with Jerome Smith. You know what I'm saying? It still was.
And you still had undersized linemen that had 1,000-yard backs behind.
Right. Yeah, with Prince Hyson Gully and everything. So, but that's the thing. You just don't announce what you're going to be, and then once people know what you're going to be, now you're gonna have to come off of that because, I mean, I get the concept. Yeah, the Orange do fast and all this other stuff, but. Hey, Tennessee plays fast, but that don't guarantee you that just because you say you play fast, it's going to be productive.
But you're saying you're fast in a conference where Louisville's faster,
right.
Florida State's faster, Clemson's faster, now North Carolina's faster.
But what the problem is with being fast, you got to be able to execute too. Fast of what? Fast of 3 and out, or
and when Syracuse was fast to score in 40 seconds and a minute 20, they still couldn't stop anybody at the time because the defense wasn't there.
Exactly.
So it was like Orange is the new fast, but you're not going to score 50 on Clemson.
Right.
And if you do, they're going to score more. I mean, and the perfect example of that was the Pittsburgh game. Mm-hmm. You score 60 plus, they scored 70 plus, and they still beat you.
Exactly.
So it's like now you got the defense to accent your offense, but your offense isn't scoring. And what I don't like is I kind of just feel like, you lose Garrett Schrader, you got a bunch of injuries, you don't have Chris Elmore, your offensive line isn't holding anybody, and I feel like Coach and I's like, take me. I feel like he just laid down. Like what am I supposed to do? It's like, well, they're keying in on Sean. And then it's like Coach I, it's like you look at the piece of paper that he had and the piece of paper said, run Sean. And then when that didn't work, he just ripped up the paper and walked by, and it's like, well,
what to Rondé,
right, like what are you gonna do? Like you've become one dimensional. You throw to one player, you run the ball with one guy. Mm-hmm. So at this point, and this is why I said this, in a 6-0 start, it felt good. Mm-hmm. And in those moments where this team was resilient against Virginia, against Purdue, it felt good. But what did I say to you? We can't sit here and glorify and say we have found the holy grail of offensive coordinators because I need to see this over a span of not games, seasons.
Right.
And I said 3 years in a row, I can turn around and say to you, okay, you know what? Coach and I is running this right. Because Tony White came in and had success, but Tony White's now in his third year, and we know that this defense has worked, and it continues to work, and it worked this past week, and it worked against Clemson to an extent. So when you see what Tony White's done over a span of time, now I can tell you not only do I think he's a good coordinator, but I think he's going to be a head coach at some point.
Yeah. And that might be a point too, though. You just like you said, it is the first year of the offense.
Right.
We're down to our backup.
But I can't glorify, Coach and I and say that he finally fixed the offense.
No,
because he's proving against better talent that he's not adjusting.
Right, either that or we just don't have enough talent to over. I don't say that. I think we got some guys that they need to give opportunity to throw more 50-50 balls to.
Square peg round hole, though. It's at what point is this you don't have the talent? Mm-hmm. And what point is this any good leader realizes that when your plan isn't working, you play to the strengths of your employees.
Right.
So it's not, you can't sit here and go, wah, they're not letting Sean Tucker run. What do I do? Right. I mean, you can't sit here and cry over spilled milk. You can't do anything about injuries. You can't do anything about the stuff that's happened that's out of your control. But what you can do now is say, this is what we have left. This is what we can do, right? If a family was living out in the wild and they couldn't find any bears, any squirrels, any deer to kill so they don't have meat, do they sit there and cry about not having meat and starve to death, or do they find berries they can eat?
Right.
So what I'm asking Coach and I to do is, instead of telling me that you can't find the bear to kill, start finding some berries that are edible and work with those berries.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes you got to stick with the offense. I told you, to me, it seems like they're running a different offense now. It's just not the same. I mean,
it's boring.
Yeah, it's
one-dimensional again.
It's trying to just go straight to Sean with the handoff, and that's not going to work.
You and I both know that him up the middle is not his game.
No, it's not. And he's more effective with the read option. Yeah, maybe Garrett pulled it a lot and kept it, but if that was the right read, then that's what you do. You know what I'm saying? Because guys know what Sean is worth to this offense.
Well, what do they say? How many of them were designed quarterback runs and how many weren't? It's like, what do they say? How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll Center or the Tootsie Pop? The world may never know. Well, how many times do we know that Garrett Trader was actually supposed to keep that ball? But what do they always say? If you get the first down, coach not going to. But what I understand that Carlos Del Rio Wilson needs time, and people forget this. Yes, he went to Florida. Yes, he was recruited in the SEC, but he never started a game in Florida. He never started a game in Syracuse until this past week against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He just had his first college start in the history of. He's not only a backup, he's never had a college start. Okay, so realize that, folks, and cut the man a little bit of slack here, because my thing is, why can't they run the same offense with him? You got a running quarterback who can understand RPO, who can get to the outside, who showed me he kept drives alive against Pittsburgh.
Right.
And the way that he rolled out when he came off the left side and his legs kicked into high gear and he got that first down, I'm sitting here going, this isn't like a poor man's Garrett Trader. This is a guy who can do something on his legs. He can stay on his feet. He's got a good arm.
Right.
So, with all due respect to the fact that he's a newbie, if I'm coaching Nye, I'm not redesigning my offense around a new quarterback. I'm keeping my offense around a quarterback that seems to have the same skill set as Garrett Trader. So what I'm struggling with is, why is the team not they may not be as successful, but it's like the difference between being like 70% effective to being like 35. And I'm sitting here going like, I feel like Carlos could be at least 40, 50, 55% effective. Like, why aren't you running the same offense with this guy when you know his legs work? Why aren't you doing the read option and having him pull, knowing that you're acting like this is the difference between Dungy and DeVito?
Right, exactly.
Like, Dino tried to force DeVito to be Dungy, and that didn't work. But why aren't you running the same offense?
I totally agree. I mean, you could tell when you look at it, they're not running the same similar offense. But that's the one thing. I don't know if, again, are they trying to protect Carlos from not getting injured or something? But at this point in the season, you can't worry about that. You know what I'm saying? You got who you got. You got to roll. It's the whole point of it is to win games.
There's an irony to playing a sport safe. It's a barbaric sport.
Right, and you're going to get hurt just probably trying to play safe, you know what I'm saying? So, but then you made a good point. It's like, trying to, with the Dungy and DeVito comparison, you know what? And I was thinking about that other day, that whole, we sing praises for that 10-win season, but I think DeVito had to come in and win at least 2 of those games, and that your backup is, if you give them an opportunity to run the offense.
That was the whole point, was that, like, as a starter, he wasn't that effective, but if he came into a game for Dungy, he could win those games.
Right.
Like I said, DeVito has proven that he's a pretty good closer. Can he be the starting pitcher?
Right.
That was the whole thing, is that, and we're seeing that now with Illinois in a better line, that he can be in a conference that really like dedicates to the trenches of the offensive and defensive line. But I mean, DeVito, he could come in the North Carolina game and get it done.
Right. State,
and there was also that weird world of Troy Nunes and Anderson. When Anderson and Nunes played on the same team together, neither one of them was a great quarterback for 4 quarters.
Right.
But both of them could play a half.
Right.
And it was usually whichever one of them started, the other one that finished could win the game.
Right.
But the guy who's like, if Nunes came out and he played the first series, you're like, oh, he's probably going to do something. But then, and if Anderson came out, he might fumble on the first drive. But if they came in relief of the other one, it was like together they were almost a good quarterback.
Right.
But individually, it just wasn't. And with DeVito, it was kind of like that. It was like he almost needed to sit for a quarter, a series, a half, and then go in. And you don't have that luxury now that you don't have Garrett. You need to just kind of remind people where we're at here. You got Garrett Trader for another season. You have Jacoby and Morgan, who Dino Babers wouldn't give any credit to, even when the man deserved credit. And then he got passed by Carlos Del Rio Wilson. And so I got a feeling, and I was kind of surprised he didn't, I have a feeling he might leave. Because he's a redshirt freshman right now.
Who's that?
Jacoby and Morgan.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I got a feeling he might leave. But I really, even more so than that, I feel that with this guy coming from the West Coast and getting nothing out there, and I know he got hurt this year, I think Justin Lamson might leave Syracuse without people even really knowing that he was here. He's a guy that comes from California, from El Dorado Hills, Oak Ridge High School. I could see Justin Lamson after this year leaving like he never came.
Right. I think he might have another year under the belt and kind of fight for the job because he did look decent in spring. It'd be a shame if he did because you already moved Valari to kind of tight end right now, even though they say that's not a closed book.
But you got Del Rio and you got Lenora Sellers coming.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think there's a place for Jacoby and Morgan, and I think he knows that.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's a place for Justin Lamson, which I am upset about because I think I have a feeling Lamson's going to be one of those guys that if he leaves Syracuse and goes somewhere else, goes like UCLA or something like that, people are going to be scratching their heads going like, how the hell did you have that guy not play him? Right. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys on that list.
Well, I mean, we know why they're not playing him this year, of course, but yeah.
Right, but it's in my head, I just kind of feel like he might be one of those ones that got away, and then you're going to see him on some draft prospect board, like, really?
Right. I mean, it happens, I mean, especially in this day of college football with the transfer portal, you're going to see that more than not. I mean, kind of like we got Carlos from Florida, We don't know what the full project is going to be with him when it's all said and done, but we see the potential in him.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I can see Morgan moving on. It's going to be interesting to see. We got the senior walk this game, so it's kind of be interesting to see who comes out and soak that last moment of the dome in, and maybe if their options is not what they want, they may come back next year, or they may just transfer, like you're saying.
Yeah, and remember the COVID time allows opportunity. We look at, and I want to, the senior class is not big. And I want to take the time to honor these gentlemen that are seniors or redshirt seniors. Now, keep in mind, ever since COVID, that what they are class-wise is not necessarily that they can't come back. But there's only 2 seniors on the team, Aaron Belinsky, the long snapper, and Isaiah Johnson. And I could really see Isaiah Johnson, the DB that's been filling in as a starting corner for Garrett Williams. I could see him come back because this is really the first time we've ever seen him.
Right.
So he's a senior. However, if that time is allotted there, we could see that. C.J. Hayes, who he came on this team and we've never seen him, really, redshirt senior, Devon Cooper. This is the end for him. I believe this is his last chance here. Devon Cooper, redshirt senior, is done. Andre Schmidt is done after this year as place kicker, but I'm hopeful in Brady Denneberg, my dude. And so Schmidt, redshirt senior. Dakota Davis on the offensive line, right tackle. Looking at Dakota Davis finishing up as redshirt senior. Darius Tisdale, who is an offensive lineman who we almost never saw his entire time here at Syracuse, is a redshirt senior. And that's a name that I genuinely feel like I was talking to him about coming onto the team 2 years ago. Chris Elmore can come back due to his many injuries. So he can come back for, I think, an unprecedented 7th year from Chicago, Illinois. He does have the opportunity to come back if he wants to. And Eric Coley, the DB, whose stepfather, Vincent Reynolds, was unceremoniously fired from the team as defensive line coach this past year. Eric Coley is done after this year.
Yep.
So we do know that at least these gentlemen will be taking the walk. Whether or not some of these players in special circumstances will hang it up, I really don't want to see Elmore go. And, the fact that, he's here, he's supporting the team, and the fact that his family is still coming out to the games and being a part of it. And I do want to shout out, as you and I went opening night to Black Panther, we just so happened to be walking into Black Panther Wakanda Forever and walking out. Chris Elmore, Chris's dad, Clinton Elmore, and the fam were all there. So I do want to give them a shout out because I asked his dad, I said, "You coming to the game?" He's like, "Oh, yeah."
Oh, yeah.
So, there's something to be said about the fact that Elmore is a lightning rod of positivity even when he's not playing. And that not only he's showing up to these games, but his family's from Chicago, Illinois, and they're coming to the games that their son is not playing in, which is pretty cool. So.
Right, and it's senior day, so yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
But so.
But in general, Clinton has been such a huge supporter of his son and defender of his son when people speak out of turn about Chris Elmore all the time. And, I want to thank the Elmore family for allowing me the opportunity to be close with you, as many families have, and trusting in me and believing in me and everything you've given me, because at a time where last year when he was like suspended and people didn't know why, and everybody was talking and people were talking about it, the Elmore family was very candid, very clear, and extremely trusting of me. And I just want to thank them for that, because the amount of respect I have for you guys is tremendous. And first time I saw Rhino's gear was out, I was like, oh, if I don't buy anything, I'm buying that. So love Rhino. I'm looking at bringing Rhino on, putting him on my apparel stuff when he's all done in Syracuse, and being like, hey man, let's work something out where we can get you be a part of Dan's Tour broadcast media and keep pushing that Rhino gear.
There you go. Yeah, definitely. He's been a hallmark to the program. He's talked about it, how he's taking guys under his wing and kind of been that leader that he didn't, like he said, he didn't have when he came into as a young freshman and stuff like that. But yeah, he definitely he sacrificed a lot even in that COVID year. He played offensive line. He didn't always just do fullback and running back or whatever.
Yeah.
He played and tight end, but he played offensive line.
Yeah.
Just so they can have a season. It was that at that point where they didn't know if they were going to have enough offensive linemen to be able to play that season.
He played O-line, D-line, fullback, tight end.
Tight end, yeah. You don't see that many times in the college career.
I said to him, I was like, you're going to start kicking the ball, blocking punt. Like, what are you going to do now? I was like, at this point.
I think he even got a kick return. How to kick it short.
Yeah.
And he just caught it, so yeah.
Well, we laughed about it because his body kind of built like Adonis.
Right.
And you know what? I said this to Adonis when Adonis was at Syracuse. I said it to Adonis ever since he finished up at Syracuse, and I have felt this way passionately. Eric Kroom came on my show, former D tackle, a few weeks ago, and before I didn't even provoke it. He said, "You know what?" He goes, "You want to know something that like I have issue with? We didn't run Adonis enough, and it was wrong." So then I brought it up to Darius Kelly, former DB on the team, and he goes, "I would agree with that." So I want to get your thoughts on it. The human wrecking ball, the plays that they used to run, the one or two times they let him run the clock out. One time he was just pounding and pounding. I mean, listen, when that guy goes for 2 yards up, that's a hit. You know what I mean? Like, he might get 2 yards, and you might be like, oh, Dan Isaac, that's 2 yards. Nobody wanted him to fall on them 2 yards. And, I mean, they ran him as a decoy, and the package that they had for him, if he was a decoy, it worked. If he ran the ball, it worked more often than not. Number 34, before Sean Tucker was 34, did Syracuse's staff under Scott Schaefer, because they didn't recruit Adonis, they inherited Adonis, did they miss the boat? Do you agree with Kroom, Kelly, and I, no pressure, or do you think that it wasn't mishandled?
Me preferably, I would prefer that he would have got the ball a little bit more. I kind of followed him coming out of Colorado. He was a highly recruited guy. You thought you had that thumper that you could have in the backfield, that change of pace guy.
Yeah.
And it just didn't. I don't know, for whatever reason. I don't know if they was wanting to take weight off of him or whatever, but at his weight that he came in, he looked like he still could run the ball. Kind of remind me of Jerome Bettis a little bit.
Yeah.
You kind of see, like, the Notre Dame got this big guy running the ball. So why? You kind of look at your roster, you're like, okay, we now finally have that guy that we recruited on our roster.
Notre Dame would have ran him all over Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
24 touchdowns.
Exactly. So, yeah, I didn't really get why they don't run people. There's some other players, not only him and not only that coaching staff, that we see some guys come in and they get an opportunity to run the ball, and then we're like, okay, we see the potential.
Yeah.
And if for some reason they get in the coach's doghouse for some reason.
Well, may he rest in peace, but Devontae McFarland.
Yeah.
We didn't see him for like the last 2 years.
Right.
I mean, you think about Devontae, you think about George Morris.
Mm-hmm.
You think about Jordan Fredericks, who got ran out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You think about who was a New York State guy. You think about Adonis. But, I mean, even like Jerome and Prince and them, like when Jerome finished up and Prince was still here, it was Jerome Prince,
right.
Power finesse.
Right.
And then they thought, okay, so they're just going to take Adonis and put him where Jerome was, and they're going to keep doing power finesse, and they didn't do it. You know, and they were trying to force other guys in there. And when you go back and you look at the stable of running backs that they put above Adonis, there wasn't anybody that was doing anything.
Right.
So, like, you know, it's the frustration of it. But, I mean, I have banged that drum forever since it was happening. So I just thought it was interesting that in the heat of conversation, Kroom brought it up by himself. And then I said, you know what? I said, Darius, you were teammates with Kroom and Adonis. So what do you think? And he was like, nah, I would agree with that. You know, he's like, I'm not one to like go against coaches, say coaches did something wrong. But, you know, they just said, like, we watched him in practice and we were like, why are we not using this guy?
Right. I mean, teams see it. I mean, and like you said, maybe they just don't want to say nothing protecting their playing time. I don't know.
Well, also when a staff comes in, that's not their guy. They didn't recruit him.
But yeah, that you get that too. So, but still, you got to use the personnel you got. And can't complain when personnel go down and you don't want to use a guy that's sitting there they're capable of.
You go on to an NFL team, you didn't draft none of those guys.
Exactly. So, and you can't get rid of them either. Just that simple either.
Right. And my thing is, like, Adonis is like the nicest kid in the world. And I told Adonis, I said, Adonis, I will always like you. We will always be close. We will always be friends. He treats me like a brother now. He sent me I love you recently, and I love you back. Another reason why I'm a big fan of Adonis, he looks like one of my favorite rappers of all time. If you put his face next to Mace's face, Mace and Betha. I told him that, I go, dude, I love you for you, but I got to tell you, you look like Mace, and in my world, I feel like that's so cool to me. Because when he would smile, and even like how he would laugh sometimes, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm in Bad Boy Records. You know, like because the way he laughed was just very, but I mean, he's such a cool father and just a nice guy, man. Like he reached out to me a couple months ago and just texted back and forth, man. And it's all love. Like we just feel the love. I don't think people get that, you know, in today's world. There's so many people in the media chasing the story. They don't care about who they burn. They don't care about who they hurt. I'm in this business to bring people together, to spread positivity, to talk about God, to talk about faith, to make people laugh. Like, I became a part of this business because I love sports. I loved collecting cards, I have photographic memory. I love telling stories, and I just love seeing people happy, and I love making the world a small place and bringing good people together. You know, it's so crazy that we're in the minority of how we do media. And the majority forgot about Adonis the day he left. But Adonis will always have a place on my show because I love the person that he is. I love how he treats me. And it's just, I just feel like it's so crazy to me that, like, these guys that played at Syracuse, like, we say I love you. We call each other brothers. Like, we hang out. We break bread together. We talk to each other about football. We talk about other stuff. We're there if we need to cry. We're there if we need to laugh. I don't think people get, like, most of the media is there to write a story, and they don't even see you as a human being. They see you as an article where if I had one friend my entire career, I'd be happy. And I look back on 19 years of being a broadcaster. Every year I make new friends, and I keep them.
Right.
And, you know, I look at Adonis. When Adonis applied for his job in Colorado to work in law enforcement, I was called as one of his references.
Right.
And I remember getting a phone call and me going, like, I was in the movie theater. I walked out of the movie theater, and I was like, did you ask me to be one of your references? He goes, yeah, man. And I was honored. And he got the job, you know, and, you know, I guess all the mean stuff I said didn't work. But,
don't give it to him. He runs like a son of a gun.
I'm not going to mess with you, Adonis. But, you know, you just look back on that stuff, man, and it's like, I don't think people get it. You might write a story, and you might think you're big, and you might make fun of somebody. You might think you're bad. But at the end of the day, like, when Adonis introduces his son to you, there ain't no story or anybody's career or name you try to tarnish that could take the place of somebody saying, Dan, I'd like you to meet my son.
Right.
You know, and I think people don't realize, and you know what, keep not realizing that because y'all are making me famous. But I don't get, no matter how much we talk about the X's and O's, that people don't understand that if it isn't about the people, you will fail every time.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it's about. It's more than these guys have great stories that are on. They come from different backgrounds. Not all of them, but but some of them in situations where they're just trying to make a best for themselves and their families and stuff. And they love this game that we like to watch and talk about.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. They'll tell you that they go through a lot of the emotions, ups and downs, but a lot of that still doesn't break their spirits of not. Look at Zaire Franklin in his years he's been on the hill with Syracuse. I don't think he went to a bowl game, but I'm pretty sure he wouldn't change a thing.
And now he's a captain.
Yeah,
on an NFL team.
Exactly.
A seventh round pick.
All that did was made him a stronger person, a better player.
Yeah.
That constantly proved himself on and off the field. So, winning, we would like to think it's important, and we would like to root for them. We want them to win every game. Be honest with you, but there's a lot of more life lessons that these guys get out of that. Just by being in that brotherhood, when they get to come back and see each other and spend time with each other, that means a lot to those guys, and whether somebody remembers them or not, but they always going to have that moment in time where they're, they can relate to each other and understand where they came from and made a team and did what they had to do, whether it was going to bowl games or not. They still was in that locker room all together. Trying to win.
Well, the thing is, every game that's played, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, right? So if the important people in society were only the people that won, then it would be Alabama and the other 130 plus teams don't matter. You know what I mean? It's
right.
When you look back on it, if it's just about wins and losses, then, you're sitting here telling me of the thousands upon thousands of football players that play the game, there's only 200 important people, to like 2,000, what I mean? So reality is that the records, I look back, I don't even look at the records. I was looking at one of the teams, and it might have been Darius Kelly down to that team, whatever. But I was looking at like the roster of like the 85 plus the walk-ons, and I'm sitting here counting it up. I'm like, I think I interviewed 78, 80 of the 85 people on this team. Like, I don't, and I'm looking at these teams. I don't care about nothing about the record. I'm just kind of going through, because I never go back to the years and just look through. So I did it, and I was like, I don't even remember that all these people were on this team. Like, it's so crazy, and you think about it, and you're like, man, all these guys are nice guys. I'd love to know any of them. And you just like, man, I talked to like 20 of them this season, like just checking up, how you doing? Like Darius Kelly and I, we just talked recently, and we spent a lot of time talking about being a dad and just life. And, we've had these really interesting conversations. Like one morning he was in Arizona, he's still there. And he was in Arizona, and he was talking to me 3 hours early. And so we're live on the show, and he's walking around, and you can hear like the world around him. And you hear this thing in the background. And I go, what's that? He goes, and you can hear him kind of like walking around. And he's like, I'm just walking by a cactus and this and that. And I go, what was that? He goes, that was a coyote. I was like, where are you? I was like, you're talking to me right now, there's a coyote and you're comfortable? I'm waiting here. Like, I was like, why didn't you run it? And he was like, oh, yeah, man. He's like, you're hearing a coyote. Like, he's talking. He's like, I think Syracuse this season. And I was just like, dude, you all right? He's like, we got coyotes here. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I get a little bit strange if a spider gets in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, talking about coyotes and stuff, not a big deal. He's like, it's not safe, but,
yeah.
And I was like, and I'm sitting here like, wow, this man just won't get off the air, break character, nothing. You know what I mean? Like, he's just doing it like that. I was like, I don't need to get a coyote attack during wake-up call.
Just another day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I was like, man, there's a different type of hood in Arizona. That coyotes.
I couldn't do it in the wrong kind of coyotes.
Yeah, that's some crazy. Well, that's my thing. I was like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's something about, I've been to Texas a couple times, but I always want to know when I land in Texas, what part of Texas is the Texas where the scorpions live? Because I can't be in that part of Texas where people are like, oh yeah, sometimes you're just walking in the parking lot to the barbecue place, and as you're walking in, one of them might sting your leg. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Like, how do you just walk? You talking about the parking lot? Are there lights in the parking? What you're nobody should camp in Texas,
Right? Exactly.
Because you're telling you, scorpions just walk up in the tent and they're like, oh, Dan, there's just scorpions on the ground. Sometimes when you're just walking, going about your life, you might be outside walking the dog, and then the scorpion just kind of comes at you, crawls on your foot, and you just kind of kick it off. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's places in this world, like also in Texas and in the deserts, when they say, they're like, oh, we have horned frogs, like TCU.
Yeah.
They're like, we have horned frogs, and you learn about these frogs. Do you know what the defense mechanism is of like some of these horned toads and stuff?
Is it like these blood splits?
They shoot blood out of their eye that is poisonous. You got laser shooting eye frogs down there, bro? Like, I'm good. You know what I mean? So, like, when I landed in Houston and I'm walking all around here, I'm like, I don't think I'm in that part yet. But if I saw a scorpion on the ground just, like, freely walking, to me, it's like this thing got out of its cage at a Petco. Like, come pick it up. I don't want to be anywhere where scorpions are considered normal wildlife.
Yeah, exactly. Or pets.
People got tarantulas. I'm like, what is wrong with you mentally? Like, if you have a tarantula, I probably think you're a serial killer.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you.
You know what I mean? Like when they take them out and they're petting them and all that stuff, that hairy thing. Whenever somebody says to you, like, when I was talking to one girl and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, I dated somebody who had a boa constrictor in the house, and sometimes it would like wrap around you and get a little bit tight, and you'd feel a little bit out of place.
A little bit tight.
I'm like,
he's practicing.
Yeah, I was like, at any given time, that thing could decide I don't like people no more.
Mm-hmm. He's sizing you up. He didn't like tighten you just to play.
Yeah. There was this one, when they said that this one guy had a boa constrictor in his house as a pet, and one day it decided to kill him. And I'm like, how did he not see that coming? You got a boa constrictor in the house, and you're like, man, he had it for 3 years. We thought they were friends. And then one day the boa constrictor got hungry. And I was like, you got to think about that. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I heard a story like that. A lady did that where she had one, and I think the pet guy pest control guy, like, no, you can't let them do that. Once they start doing that, they're literally testing you out to see, okay.
Yeah.
They're ready to eat you now if they're going to squeeze you or something.
Could you imagine being the coroner's office and like you go in and like you go onto the crime scene, you're a cop on your first beat, and they're like, you got the dumb houses. So you walk into this house and there's a woman on a bunk bed hovering with a boa constrictor that's still alive, that's got its head over her, like trying to eat her slowly. And you come in and it's got the head in the mouth, and you see the head going up the neck, and it's sitting there, and she like this, just hovering in midair. And it's like, this dumb woman. like what inside? But there was one story about a kid who somebody broke into their dorm room, and they had a pet iguana, and they didn't see the iguana because it was messy, and the iguana was underneath the sheets, and the iguana actually protected the room and got the person out. And I didn't know that iguanas could be like that vicious.
Oh, really?
But see, I would take my chances with an iguana. Because their mouth is not as big, you know what I mean? But it's like, you just kind of look at this stuff. Like, I think about it like this. If something happened to you...
That's your thing, is the mouth's that big. That's your criteria to judge it.
Yeah, I stay away from people that got big mouths. Because I don't know, they go open it one day, they lock jaw, and they
I get you.
But I look at, I look at so many jokes I could tell right now. And, but I won't. But, it's the difference between having a dog and a cat. They say, like, if something happened and you fell ill, the dog will lick you, it'll cry, and the dog will try to help you. They say, like, after a while, if a cat thinks you're dead, it might start thinking, food. You know what I mean? There's a difference between a cat going, like, I never really liked it, and a dog losing it. Like, a dog, they'll say, like, if they find somebody in the house and something's wrong, the dog will be whimpering laying next to them. The cat is sizing you up, thinking, how long I gotta wait till I get to eat this? And the snake is going, this dumb idiot let me in the damn house.
But you know what?
Came and found me in a
cats
rainforest.
are pretty protective too, though. I don't know.
Some of them.
Yeah, cats. Even as my buddy down south said, he keeps cats around his yard to keep the snakes out of his yard.
Oh yeah, keep the snakes out, but they're not trying. They're keeping the snakes out. When the snakes go away, he might try to eat them. He didn't try life without the snakes.
But he feeds them. I give him credit.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's what I learned. So if you got a boa constrictor in the house, you need a crocodile in the house so they can screw with each other. And then once one of them wins that wildlife battle, it should not be your friend. And if you're in a house, I mean, the travesty. I can't believe this tiger didn't do anything for 10 years. That tiger was the most patient tiger for his dinner.
They give them an opportunity. They'll take advantage of it.
Headline: Siegfried gets attacked by pet tiger after 10 years of bliss. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like being married to somebody that you know kind of hates you. Eventually, she's going to try to kill you.
Eventually,
you know, my mom said to my dad, she goes, all I got to do is put a little bit of antifreeze in your dinner every week, and it'll never show up. I kill you slowly. And I said, you can't do it, Mom, now, because I heard it.
Yeah.
My parents used to sit at the table and talk about how they could do it. And I said,
I
said, I'm blowing you both in because it's premeditated. I heard everything. I said, you guys need to have these conversations to yourself. Well, you can't have these in front of your son. They're going to be like, Dan, what happened? I'll be like, well, you know, sometimes you got to race. But I mean, you know. What's worse, you know, running the same office is not working, or owning a boa constrictor thinking that y'all gonna be friends?
Yeah.
Oh, he just hugging me because he missed me from work. No, girl, he trying to eat you.
Exactly. Trying to take you out.
Yeah. He's trying to hug me a little. A boa constrictor, and those things are massive.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And there's girls down in Florida that I talked to, and she's like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting a snake. I was like, there's a reason why Jesus didn't let us date.
Yeah, don't go around FAMU, the rattlers. Oh no.
But like, what inside of a person's mind thinks, you know what? This world is not dangerous and crazy enough. I'm gonna buy a tiger and hope for the best.
Yeah, we got a few out there, but yeah.
You know what I mean? And how do you train the tiger to be like, sit at my door, and if somebody comes in, eat them, but don't eat me? You're teaching them to eat people, but not you.
Right.
You just show them a picture and give them food and show them I mean, and at the end of the day, it's a wild animal.
Exactly. And wild animals belong in the wild.
Right. Like, who in their right mind has a crocodile? Well, somebody does.
Yeah, somebody does.
Somebody's messing with that. There's also rich people that eat pufferfish. You hear about that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, the pufferfish, inside of it has a gland or something that is extremely poisonous. And so inside of their body, they have the ability to kill you like instantly with this venom that they hold inside of themselves, right? So and if you're preparing, so if you kill a pufferfish, that thing that's in there is still lethal. You have to prepare the fish perfectly. So it's not just how you eat it and what you do. You can kill yourself preparing the fish. So there are people that have so much money and nowhere to put it, apparently, and don't want to give it to cancer research, but want to eat a pufferfish, that will go here and eat a fish that could kill them. And if it is just slightly prepared incorrectly, they'll take a bite and die instantly. And rich people pay money to eat the fish that can kill them. Doesn't that make you mad at rich people more?
Exactly. You got nothing else to do but play with your life with food. And no.
Yeah, you are so rich that you can eat a pufferfish that can almost kill you, man. It's like, you know, and then people dying here of breast cancer, and
I bet that wouldn't kill a poor person.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's like when New Orleans hit and everybody's like, there was a lady that went down rich from here, from Central New York, and she looked at me, and I had done Katrina relief, and we were all having breakfast after church, and she goes, I don't know what Dan was talking about. And I'm looking at her, and she goes, I just went down to New Orleans, and I had the best time. There were no houses and none of the things you talk about. If she was trying to say that I was saying fake news, I said, well, first, you're rich. The first thing they cleaned up was Bourbon Street for the tourism.
Right.
And none of the expensive houses got attacked. The people that dealt with it were the people that were built below sublevel in the bowl. That hurricane wreaked havoc on the poor housing that should have never been built. So she told everybody at the table, I think Dan's full of it, and I think he's lying because there's nothing bad going on in New Orleans because I didn't see it. I said, well, you didn't drive there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You didn't go off the
you didn't go off the reservation.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, like you went to Bourbon Street.
Mm-hmm. New Orleans ain't just Bourbon Street.
No, I was like, did you go? I looked at it. I go, did you go to the 9th Ward? Did you go to the 7th Ward? I'm naming all this stuff. She's like, she didn't even know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're telling me that I faked hurricane disaster relief? And I was like, I know where your house is.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why don't you just stay in that house and pretend like that's what America is, but it's not.
Exactly.
So, getting back to football quick here before we let you go. Overall look at the ACC and where the teams currently sit right now inside of this conference. Taking a look at the conference as a whole, Syracuse is still second in the Atlantic, only to Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson, at the time we're talking 6-0 in the conference. Syracuse 3-2, but right behind Syracuse is the team they own the tiebreaker over, NC State. The danger zone here is if Syracuse is to lose and NC State is to win, NC State will jump them here. But if they tie at the end of the season by conference, Syracuse will have the tiebreaker. Another danger zone is the fact that Syracuse is 3-2 and Florida State is 4-3. The only thing holding Florida State back behind Syracuse is the extra loss. If Syracuse is to lose here, 4-3 trumps 3-3, and now all of a sudden Florida State and NC State could jump Syracuse. So after this weekend, Syracuse could go from 2-4 in the Atlantic. Another danger zone is the fact that Louisville still has a shot at coming up here, and then Wake Forest and Boston College have struggled. On the other side, in the Coastal Division, North Carolina is 5-0, undefeated in the ACC. Duke is 3-2. Georgia Tech, after it seems like their recipe for success was to fire people.
Mm-hmm.
They fired the head coach and the AD. They're 3-3 in the conference. Point at the time that we are speaking in the ACC, we have every team in the Atlantic Division not named Boston College. 6 out of 7 are going to a bowl game. Clemson, Syracuse, NC State, Florida State, Louisville are all going to a bowl game in the Coastal. North Carolina and Duke, despite the fact that they don't all have good records. And I'd also like to hear your thoughts on Louisville, who started off the season getting blown out by Syracuse at a game we went to, and has done what Louisville does, which is just get better with time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think just to say how tough the Atlantic Division is, you know, that kind of proves, you know, like you say, maybe the overall record is not as great, but, you know, they all kind of, besides who's not bowl eligible, Boston College.
Yeah, 2-7.
Yeah, that whole side of that division, you know, shows you how tough it is in the Atlantic side, and then you jump to the coastal side, you got maybe 1 or 2 teams that already reached that threshold. But you know, Louisville starting the season off didn't probably, you know, sleepwalk when they came into Syracuse. Syracuse was ready for Louisville. You know, that was just on their calendar circle. They've been ready to get with Louisville for the last few years. Louisville's always had the name recognition over Syracuse with the Lamar Jackson leap and all this other stuff. But
well, I think, you know, Syracuse. We know that Syracuse would love to play Louisville the first 3 weeks of the season.
Oh yeah,
season.
There are certain teams that, you know, early in the season you get them when you got, again, full health of players and stuff that, you know, you can definitely do a lot. And again, the element of surprise to a new offensive coordinator, you know, putting together what they were trying to put on film.
When you said that, I just pictured Coach and I turning off all the lights in the offensive room and having glow in the dark paint on. I mean, when you said surprise, bah! You know, I just picturing all this. Yeah, sorry.
But you know, no, it's and it's true. I mean, you come out early in the season now. Everybody has film on this offense, so yeah. I mean, they didn't even know who they were in the beginning either. They had to take on the identity that they built during that 6-game winning streak. You know, we didn't know Aronde was going to be as good as he's been so far this year. But you know, like you said, now it's time for adjustments. Because that's what it's going to take these last 3 games of the season. How well can Syracuse adjust to what the other teams are doing to them to stop them? But it's going to be interesting to see that 3-3-5 format now that we won't be tightly held to the Atlantic Division.
We'll not be playing Louisville every year.
Right. Or Clemson.
Only twice every 4 years.
Right.
Not playing Clemson.
Right.
Not playing. So Syracuse doesn't have to play better North Carolina team now.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to play North Carolina every year. They don't have to play Clemson every year. They don't have to play Wake every year. They don't have to play NC State every year, and they don't have to play Louisville every year.
Mm-hmm.
They lucked out. They got to play BC,
Mm-hmm.
Pitt, and Florida State. Now,
Right.
granted, I told everybody with Mike Norvell, they are going to get right. And here in year 3, you know, he's on schedule for me.
Right.
You know, if not maybe a little bit ahead. Florida State is. They are not the team. Listen, Mike Norvell is not the guy you want to recruit against,
Mm-hmm.
and they are not the team you want to play against. I'm telling you right now, Syracuse may have a rude awakening at a Florida State offense that might look eerily familiar to when they weren't prepared for the ACC in the beginning.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you give them a couple of years and get some of those young guys opportunity to learn. Again, it was a new system. It might take a little time for those guys to adjust to that system. Just like what we kind of saying we're going through here in our first year in the new system.
Yeah.
But, I think it was George Travis last year, or he has another year if he want to come back. But, I mean, that's the beauty of college. The reason I say that is college football, you got to go out and recruit and bring in talent year in and year out. Because if you don't, and you don't replace a key position like quarterback or line or whatever the case may be, system or not, you may find yourself struggling. So, different quarterbacks come from different systems and might always fit. We've seen that. So, but how well can he keep that up? I thought Jimbo was doing a great job down there.
Yeah.
Before he went to Texas A&M and stuff. I mean, he always had Clemson's number until they left. So, but yeah, definitely it's going to be a tough game for Syracuse. George Travis has both the legs and the arm to do it. He's been in the system for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And the offensive line has gotten better and better.
Jordan Travis started at Louisville?
Oh, really? He did. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that either.
Nah, I didn't either.
He was 4 for 14, 28.6% completion percentage, 71 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, I'm guessing in relief. And then came to Florida State in 2019. And only had 6 completions, 11 attempts.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, let's think about this mathematically. So, if Louisville was a redshirt year, and then he transferred to Florida State, technically 2019, 20, 21, 22 would be his 4 years, but then the COVID year.
Yeah.
So, I think arguable stance here is that he can come back for 1 more year.
Yeah, he can, but who knows if he will. But if he started at Louisville, then he was probably behind Lamar and I think Puma Pass or whatever. But yeah, I didn't. I mean, good thing he wasn't on Louisville now. But Louisville already had our number, so like I was saying, so
yeah.
A great athlete. I mean, Louisville's been doing pretty well recruiting wise themselves. Anyway, they always seem to bring in a decent class. So it is a little surprising, but he's a prospect, So it'll be interesting to see what his decision is, though. But that's always a key. That's why I really like college football. Is you just don't draft players or spend money in free agency to bring somebody in. You got to go out and recruit, bring in a player with potential. You never know what guy's going to be until they get their game time. And got to earn their spots in practice and come out there and prove themselves. So we kind of going through that ourselves. So he's trying to learn his way through the season right now.
Yeah.
And who knows where he'll be in a year or two.
Yeah, and Jordan Travis can come back, which is bad news for the rest of the ACC.
Right.
And granted, a year ago, last year, people were saying, and I was even thinking to myself with Mackenzie Milton there, who I covered at UCF as well, like, I think Jordan Travis could lose his job. Mm-hmm. And then, because Jordan Travis didn't have, kind of getting the DJ Uyunglele treatment, right?
Yeah,
where he came
exactly.
out and wasn't successful right out the gate, and people were losing their friggin' heads. 2020, he was 55% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,056 yards. Granted, Florida State didn't even play, even in an abridged season, they didn't even play the abridged season.
Mm-hmm.
They played less than the abridged season because there was that big issue that Clemson came all the way there, and then they said, yeah, we're not playing.
Right.
So last year, 62.9% completion percentage. He's tied that this year in 2022. 1,539 yards last season, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's got 17 and 4 this year, already better, 2,259 yards, and he's still got games to be played. And keep in mind, he does run the ball. He has 19 touchdowns rushing in his career. He had 3 in 2019 at Florida State, 7, and this season he has 2, and that's because he's got a stable of running backs, 3 of them that are averaging over 6 yards a carry. So this man is the 4th running back on the team, even though he can run the ball, and that is why I think they're going to blow this game wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'll let you tell you what you say that's your prediction is, but I think that if the offense can give the defense a little rest, they may get 30 points on Syracuse easily, but I think our defense is our strong point. It's just going to be how worn down can some of the offense get this defense, but they are. This is the strength of us, the 3-3-5 defense for us. So, but when you got a 3-headed monster like you said, if we let any one of those guys get in a normal rhythm, it's going to be a tough day. I mean, hey, they put a 45 on Miami.
They've scored 40 the last 2 games at least. And we look at, the guys that we're talking about here. I mean, they spread the ball around. Trey Benson, Lawrence Toffoli as well, Toffoli, pardon me. And then looking at C.J. Campbell, and Benson had the over 100 yards against Miami, 2 touchdowns. And then we look at Toffoli had 52 yards and then a touchdown to C.J. Campbell, who carried the ball less. And we see in that game, and we look back overall statistically for this team, and, Florida State, what they've been able to do during this season statistically overall when it comes to running the ball is put up Trayshawn Ward had 488, 6.8 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. Lawrence Toffoli, 367 yards, 4.6 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. Rodney Hill had come in as well, 113 yards so far, 6.3 yards a carry. He's got a touchdown. C.J. Campbell, 4.6 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. So you got all these guys and your quarterback, Jordan Travis, 4.5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. So you got you got 6 guys that have scored at least 1 rushing touchdown. And of all of those 6 players, their worst yards per carry is 4.5. Their best is 7.0.
And that doesn't spell good.
So you got almost 5 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry, 7 yards a carry amongst 6 different players.
Yeah, I mean.
So you can play your 5th string running back and your quarterback, you're going to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a decent line, let's see how well they can block. We know they're dynamic runners, so. Yeah. But yeah, if they can block and push Syracuse defense around like the last 3 games, then yeah, they got the roster to do it with.
So your score?
My score, I would say 37-13 FSU.
Okay. So Isaac going 37-13, you said? So 37-13 FSU. Ironically, Isaac picks the same score for Syracuse. I have 55-13 FSU. So and that's just the score that came to me like literally I think after the Pittsburgh game.
Right.
And it just stuck with me. And
right.
I trust my gut. So 55-13, I think it's going to look like one of those Florida State games of old where you kind of shake your head like, oh my gosh, you're not ready for the ACC.
Right.
55-13. I don't listen. This is not a knock on the defense. I think they're going to be on the field too long. That's all.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think the way the defense plays, I would say maybe not as much unless offenses turn the ball, giving them a short field.
We both have a blowout.
Yeah.
Mine's just.
I think
more.
if the way this team plays bend but don't break defense, usually they don't really give up too many. Now they got dynamic runners. I agree with you, but they usually don't give up the big play that much. But if they can't get them off the field, they're usually going to see grinding drives. That might slow the score down a little bit lower, unless we get fumbles or interceptions or block kicks. Then yeah,
I put it to you like this: they got at least a 3-headed running back situation. Notre Dame had a three-headed running back situation, scored 41, right? And manhandled Syracuse. The difference, they got a three-headed running back, but they can throw. Slovis wasn't throwing for Notre Dame.
Right.
So you got Jordan Travis who can throw and run, plus your 5 running backs, and maybe you play 3 of them, 4 of them, whatever. I mean, in the second half, they could be going down their 4th-string guy and just giving him the ball. So my concern is if Notre Dame are big power guys, Florida State is power and agility. They're the power speed.
Right.
So now you got a Florida State team where it's like, how are these guys so big, so fast? Where Notre Dame, you could be burly. Florida State, it's like burly but light on his feet, too, at the same time. So my concern is you're playing a team that on paper gives you a threat like Notre Dame did in the backfield. Difference, their quarterback can run. Difference, their quarterback can throw.
No, totally.
And not that Slovis can't throw in the future, but he's not throwing right now.
Right, yeah, he's early in his career. I mean, but yeah, you got an experienced guy in Travis that he's been around games and definitely, and then Syracuse.
He won with his feet last time Syracuse played him last year.
Well, yeah, and then, Syracuse got some guys filling in on the back end, but, it'll be interesting to see how much they do throw the ball. I mean, like we say, they don't have to. That's the thing. They don't even have to throw, but whether they want to just to open the game up,
Well, look at what Slovis did.
Yeah.
A few times he threw, you throw to your big old tight end.
Right.
I think
that's play action off of the run game. Yeah, exactly.
And I think Florida State is going to be better at that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think this game is going to open up a little bit more. And I just feel like no matter what Syracuse says, I feel like this 3-game losing streak is kind of snowballing at this point in the season. I don't believe that it's just one game and one game and one. I'm getting this notion that there's a little bit of a hangover, so to speak.
Well, I mean, you got again. You said back of his first game, his first start, you couldn't really expect too much.
Yeah, no.
From that.
But I'm saying a locker room can start to change.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my concern right now.
Right. Yeah, it definitely can do. I mean, losing is not a good feeling for those guys, and I'm pretty sure they even did that after their first game. They lost the first game, and the guys forgot their own little tradition that they started with not going in the locker room.
You're like, why are they leaving the field? And you said repeatedly.
Yeah.
You said they're walking off the field. He's like, Dino's going to get them back. Those guys are walking
I've seen that record play before. So, yeah, it was their first loss, and some guys, hung their heads and, forgot the moment that, maybe the younger players. I saw older players doing it too, not just the young guys.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so yeah, it can affect the locker room just like that. You just, but those guys again, I want to see some other guys get opportunities to come out there if they're ready to step up on the field. Mm-hmm. Maybe some of these guys that you was holding out on the back end is you got 3 games left and a bowl, so that's 4 games left. If somebody was redshirting, and you need a little bit of depth, whether it's on D line or whatever, hey,
I want to shout out some guys that have made the 2 deep late in the season. Kevin Jobity Jr., a defensive end behind Caleb Okechukwu, who we saw recently here fill in, and Quan Peterson, who shows up on the depth chart for the first time in the 2 deep behind Deuce Chestnut as a freshman at corner.
And again, that might have been one of those situations where there was holding Quan back, saying, "Oh, we really want to redshirt you, but we see your potential." And now, hey, it's every man on deck now.
Do want to let you know, though, that Syracuse is almost 100% in the red zone still, 32 of 34. And as Isaac and I said weeks ago, those 2 that they weren't, one of them was when they knelt down in the 55 to nothing or 59-0 win over Wagner, and the other one was when we thought there was going to be a flag, and so did Schrader, and threw the interception on what I think he thought was a free play. Right. So there's still, besides those 2 free plays, they're still 100% in the red zone. And you say, Dan Isaac, in this 3-game losing streak, especially the last 2 games, how can they still be almost 100% in the red zone? Well, put simply, they didn't make it. They didn't get to the red zone.
Right. Yeah, they definitely. Well, I think Carlos got a couple touchdowns. I don't know if it was from the red zone or not. The one with Adams along the sideline. But yeah, it's it's not enough.
Right.
Is your point.
What I'm saying is once they get there, it's there. Like, statistically, they're still really good.
Exactly, but it's not enough.
But the thing is, yeah, it's not enough.
Right.
And they're missing the big play.
Right.
Which is outside of the red zone.
Right,
and,
right.
You know, that's an Amari Hatcher drop from Carlos Del Rio Wilson against Notre Dame, and some other plays that happen, and some things getting called back. You know, 22 of the 32 scores in the red zone have been touchdowns, and 10 have been field goals. And I do want to give a shout out to Andre Schmidt, who's a semifinalist once again, 15 of 17 on his field goals this season, and extra point wise, 31 of 31.
Yeah, we know what Andre was coming back. You know, that definitely helped the team out a lot for him to step back up and show his leadership for the special teams, and a couple of guys get to learn behind him and see what he do. And I think we're gonna still be in some good hands when he do finally go to the next level too.
Yeah, absolutely. Final note.
Hey, it's gonna be a physical game. Fans come out, support senior night. The team gonna really need that 12th man, as they like to call it.
Yeah.
In the dome. It's a Saturday night. Where else are you gonna be? You know, let's get to the dome.
And well, you're either going to be at the Dome or you're going to be at Carvel DeWitt eating my ice cream. Over 40,000 people. I asked for 40K this year, and you gave me that. Thank you. Senior night above every night to honor the people that are hanging their hats up, that have given everything they could to this program. If you showed up 40,000 strong for 2 games this season, this is the game that you should sell out. There is nothing that is more meaningful to some people who may never play the game again than senior night. So you come out to the Dome, 8 o'clock this Saturday, November 12th, against Florida State. Win, lose, or draw. These people you may never see again and have given 4, 5, 6 years to this school, to this city, to this community, to this program. If there's ever going to be a time where you sell it out, it is senior night. I expect to see you there. With that being said, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, we want to thank you for being a part of Tortora and Alford. Wake Up Call in our normal times is Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, or MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. You'll find us worldwide. Facebook.com/LiveNowDT and on WakeUpCallDT.com. You can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or Wake Up Call DT as one word. A ton of shows have been added to the archives on all of these channels. Go to any one of these and you will get a plethora of new additions from Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. Once again, search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or one word Wake Up Call DT on any one of these outlets. You can also ask Alexa and your Amazon devices in general, as well as your Google Home devices, to play the latest episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. They'll do that for you as well. Thanks to our incredible partners in Central and Upstate New York: Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Witty Wicks, Amicoli's, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Chick-fil-A Watertown, Honda City of Liverpool, Mother's Cupboard, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Chick-fil-A Cicerone, Chick-fil-A Clay, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partners of the Lemoyne College Dolphins and Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse. You can go to the Lemoyne tab on wakeupcalldt.com for all of our content, the BSC Syracuse tab for Bryan and Stratton content on wakeupcalldt.com, and you can subscribe to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and never miss a broadcast of Dolphin Dive, AD&DT, Bobcat Buzz ever again. So make sure you do that. And as always, we thank you for being a part of the show. Inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, plenty of locations throughout Syracuse, Manlius, and North Syracuse. You can find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. For Tortora and Alford, Isaac Alford, myself, Dan Tortora, God bless, no stress, do your best. And for the love of God, be good.